So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Welcome back, One Love Jamaica family. Today I'm in the community of Guanaboa Vale here in St. Catherine. We're specifically here to look at the St. John's Anglican Church that has been here since 1699 and also tell you about the connection between this community and Norman Washington Manley. I do hope you enjoy this video and I do hope you learn a lot from this one. So here, One Love family, we'll start with this sign that's here in Guanaboa Vale. Guanaboa Vale is located approximately 8 miles southwest of Bog Walk and 9 miles from Spanish town St. Catherine. The area was once occupied by the Taínos, and it is believed that the word Guanabo was derived from the Arawakan word for soursop, Guanaba, or the Asian Arawak words Kani and Boa, meaning house of gold. Under Spanish occupation, Guanaboa was used as a cattle ranch, and by the time of the British rule, the surrounding area was known as Cowhides. Guanaboa is also the old name of this parish of St. John, which in 1664 was one of the 7 original parishes established by the British in Jamaica. John Styles, one of Jamaica's early planters, became the largest landowner in St. John. He wanted his 3,200 acres of land to be designated a distinct parish. However, 2 centuries later, by 1867, St. John would be merged into the parish of St. Catherine under an act to reduce the total number of parishes in the island. Present-day Guanaboa Vale still boasts the historic Church of St. John, built in 1699. Remains of an old boiler house used during slavery in the production of sugar, and Guanaboa Elementary School, attended by national hero Norman Washington Manley, who came to live at the nearby Belmont Estates in 1903. So that's some very important information there. One Love Jamaica family. As we can look in, you see in that direction, we see what is a large cane field. Some of the remnants from the days of slavery, you know. Sugar is not so dominant as it was back some decades ago, but there are still some remnants of it here. Also, if you notice here, you see this is an open air gas station, and it seems to still be functional because you see it has the price. If you want a diesel, it's $192 Jamaican, 87 for 179, and 90 gas for 191. And I'm assuming that the attendant would be found over by that historic old stone building over there, which operates as a shop. Now let us take a walk across the road. Oh, ironically too, the Guanaboa Vale police station is located right there, and to the left is where you find the St. John Anglican Church. Here's another old building that has been here for quite some time. I think somebody probably occupies it at the moment. And you can see there's one building there and another building just behind there. And we can see some very beautiful flowers on the side of the street here, and the sign that points you directly to the police station. Now, I make my way on this side here now to the main reason for us being here today is to just take a walk over to the St. John Anglican Church, and you can hear that somebody is currently now cutting the premises as we speak. So let me just make my way here, and you'll notice there are a number of graves located here on the premises here in Guanaboa Vale. It says on this one, in loving memory of Mary Crawford, born March 6, 1897, died March 19, 1989. So that lady would have lived to, that would have been, what, 92? Yes, I think 92 years old. And you see another one over on this side. It says Doris Aldina Lewis, 1900 to 1988, so she would have passed away at the age of 88 years old. It's over here. And in loving memory of devoted husband and father Arthur U. King, died September the 24th, 1973, age 62. So some information I just gleaned from the gentleman that's currently doing cutting the grass here. He basically let me know that the church, up until the recent passage of Hurricane Melissa, was still functional. Persons were still attending church, but since the hurricane, he has noticed that no church service has been held. So, yeah, that's a very interesting fact to learn. You can see the building is very well aged. It's one of the oldest churches that exist in Jamaica. Again, was built in 1699. And as per usual, I know I'll give you more historical facts about the building, but it's quite interesting, you know. And persons who appreciate history also would be very appreciative to learn more about this building. And it's a beautiful building, you know. You can see that the area has been, the yard space has been maintained for quite some time. So this is a kind of one of the smaller looking graves. So One Love Jamaica family, this one is a mystery to me. I am not sure of the details, but this is obviously some youngster, some baby at least, that would have passed away at the time. It's not very legible. It said sacred to the, I can't recognize what else. I know that I see Laura Edith. It says young, and I can't really recognize anything. I see John and I see Laura again. So I'm assuming that whosoever is here is Laura, a very young Laura that would have passed away. You can see here, even a tree seems to be growing out of the grave. So, and also you'd have seen that there are quite a large number of graves on the property that I'm assuming probably even goes way back into the bushes. Some magnificent looking trees, even these coconut trees, they seem to be very tall. I'm assuming some of these are at least 50, maybe 70 feet. And there are some trees that are even much taller. Even this mango tree here, very magnificent in its size and, you know, and stature. And we can take a look over this side. We notice that there is another set of graves. A lot of them are been here for quite some time. I think I saw one earlier that would have been close to at least 100 years old. A lot of them, in terms of their writing and so, or whatever was there, you know, because of due to time, can't recognize, I can't read what is necessarily on a lot of them. But just taking a closer look here. And over here. So this person was born in 1884 and I think died 1981. And I'm looking at some of these old ones that are made of bricks. These must have been here for at least 100 years or more. There isn't any writing on some of these, so it's very difficult for me to identify, you know, the age, but I'm almost sure any historian there can almost back me up on this one. So you can imagine the centuries of history buried right in the churchyard here at the St. John's Anglican Church. See here. As I said, most of this thing is just not very legible, very difficult for me to read anything that's there. So let us take a walk here. I saw this tree. It's very interesting. You can see where a section of the window there is basically broken out. See, just over time, it just has deteriorated like a lot of the buildings. You can see a few cracks. I noticed that there's a ladder there on the building that goes over to the other side. I'm assuming that is for maintenance purposes. Any of you are able to tell me this looks like it's some kind of fruit? I don't know if any of you are able to tell me exactly what it is. You know, I always rely on my viewers and subscribers to assist me with information. Please let me know if you're able to identify what this is. But this is a beautiful church, in my opinion. Beautiful, it's magnificent. Let's just take a walk further on the property here, you know, just to get myself familiar. I've driven by this area many, many occasions. I've never taken the time to stop. So now, so I take a little walk in here. You hear the birds chirping all over. A lot of coconuts have fallen off the tree. So a lot of very thick bushes on that side. Not necessarily going over there. I noticed that there is a building somewhere up there. Going to take a look at it to see what is it I may be able to learn from that. Oh, and this tree, this is a mango tree. And if you notice here, you see a hole, it's hollowed out. So you can imagine. I don't know if there's probably honey or anything on the inside, giving you all a better view of what's on the inside. But that section of the tree has been hollowed out. And this tree looks like it's probably is, you'll be surprised to know of its age. Also, I read somewhere that one of the oldest cotton trees known to be in Jamaica, that is, I think 450 plus years, would be found in the Guanaboa Vale area. So I've noticed that there's that building structure. There's that one which obviously is more recent, a more recent structure. I'm going to take a look on this one, or this era, which looks like it has been a little bit more dilapidated. So, yeah. Whoa. Whoa. Because it's kind of thick. A little bit difficult to get my way through here. I wonder if this is the remains that I read on that sign about some. But this facility wouldn't have been that old. This is something that's probably under 100 years old or so. So I'm not sure exactly what happened or would have happened in this area, why it would be in this condition. I noticed that there's a little pond or a little swamp somewhere right there. You see these vines heading up onto this building here. Let me see what I can see over this side here. So, that would be answers some of you would know, people. So, not exactly sure what was at this particular building. But this is a much more modern design building. Let's take a look on the inside. so let us head back towards closer to the St. John's Anglican Church to see what more we can discover over there. And you can probably get a little closer to this building here. As I said, this is a much more modern building. Somebody put some graffiti on the wall here, as you can see. See, this would have probably been some main living room space. This is probably what would have been the bedroom space. You can see the current condition. A lot of remains of coconuts. Just a look at what we can see on the ceiling here. A lot of green. I'm not sure if that is just because of all the water and so that would have soaked in, why that is coming out of the concrete here. Alright, so I'll just head over to this side. So here's another angle of the St. John's Anglican Church here. Also, I think I'd walk by another grave, which is one of those graves that are made from brick. And they would see that over time they would have put some concrete in here. It's just that there's no information on them. So I just have to assume that they were from, more than a century or probably even longer ago. Here's a look from a window we can see on the inside. The roof, I realize that the flooring is a bit higher than from where I'm at on the outside. Look to me like it hasn't been used for much longer than a few months, as what the gentleman says. I don't know how many persons would have been coming here, but I just have to take his word for it. Oh, I think this is probably one of the biggest apple trees I've ever seen. This is a OTET apple tree. You see that? That stretches at least 70 to 80 feet in the air, people. It's magnificent. I guess a lot of that has to do with the kind of weather and stuff that is in the air. This is a pear tree. And again, it's magnificent. And here's some remains of another grave. This one now over time has, almost totally deteriorated. There's another few. So apparently in this entire area, there are just a number of graves that are in that area. Here's another angle of the church. And I tell you that somebody, well, obviously it's the gentleman that I saw earlier that is more than likely responsible for the maintenance of this place. And trust me, it's well maintained. Now here, let me see if you're able to get some more information. All right, so it says here, rest interred the body of Elizabeth Charnock, that's CHRNOCK, mother of the John Charnock. Okay, I'll have to do some research to find out who the Charnocks are in terms, but there would seem to be some persons of quote unquote importance at the particular time. They were probably slave owners or owners of property, sugar estates and so on. At this point, I don't know. Here you can see the crumbling walls that are attached to the church. And here with this now, this area now seems to be reserved specifically. Yes, I see the Hudson, Neil Gilpin Hudson, Marjorie Gilpin Hudson, Charles Gilpin Hudson, Agnes Maud Gilpin Hudson. So it seems to be this entire area is reserved just for one particular family. The Gilpin Hudson family. I see Donald Gilpin Hudson, Lillian Gilpin Hudson, Doris Gilpin Hudson, and it says Kathleen Gilpin Hudson. So quite a number of the members of the Hudson family, just in case any one of you may be related to the Hudsons. Here is where it seems quite a number of them have now been laid to rest. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I'm seeing areas there, so maybe there are some additional apart from the 9 that I see lined up here. And we can see there are a few more graves as I look around. Here's another one. But this is quite interesting. I wonder who are these Gilpin Hudsons? Something else for me to research, but quite interesting to see that they all occupy this space. 9 graves so far from what I can see, and I'm not sure if those 2 other areas may be occupied. It may have been a bit older. And these persons would have passed away. It says Lillian Gilpin Hudson died August 26, 2011. It says Donald Gilpin Hudson died June 7, 1984. Let me just go around, you know. If it's even just one family that probably would have lost some kind of connection, and if you're able to reconnect them to their past, don't you think that's a good thing? One Love Jamaica family. This is in loving memory of Harold Fraser. Yes. So let me start from up here. This is not what I came here for, but it just seems interesting to me. So, Neil Gilpin Hudson died June 30, 1928 people. That's 1928, that's 98 years ago. Marjorie Gilpin Hudson died May 18, 1934. So from 1928 is the first one, 1934. And it says Charles Gilpin Hudson, 1963. Oh, this is Agnes Maud Gilpin Hudson, died January 23rd, 1973. Richard Lancelot Rivette. Well, obviously the last name is different, but obviously must be connected. Died June 5, 1937. And Doris Gilpin Hudson died July the 9th, 1977. Kathleen Gilpin Hudson died the 19th of October, 1975. Donald Gilpin Hudson died June 7, 1984. And Lillian Gilpin Hudson died August the 26th, 2011. And here, as I said, it looks like there's 2 others, but I don't see any kind of information, any kind of headstone or anything like that. But this one, very interesting. So let me head over here. It would also seem that the door to the church is ajar. So, oh, it's open. So let's go inside and just take a closer look. Yeah, man, I think the young man was mistaken. If there is anything happening here, obviously the entire ear was not being used. But can you imagine? 1699. I'm wondering if these were the original wooden era where the pastor would preach and the pulpit. It's in quite a state as it seems at this time. Wow. Historical and important. So there's a cross. So there's some holes in the roof. So there. Well, it does show at least that it was being used in recent years. You see, there is two Holy Bible. Not sure if, oh, this is a hymnal. There's a look at the church from this angle. You'll be looking on the congregation. You can see that era they were doing some work on the roof. So, oh. Here's the organ. And yeah, you can see that they made sure to secure this organ. I wonder how old this is. Obviously, it wouldn't be as old as from 1699, but I'm still interested to find out the actual age. You know, it'd be good to sit down with somebody probably in their 70s, 80s, or 90s for them to just give us a bit of the history that they would have experienced. I always love to listen to older people, you know, pass down the information because it makes no sense. We basically leave with all the information. You know. This area is kind of dark. So this may be where, I don't know what and what would have been kept here. I have my light with me. So let me just take out my light. And let us go on a bit of a discovery right here.
What you're looking at isn't just an old ruin in the bush. This is the St. John's Anglican Church in Guanaboa Vale, a place that holds some of the earliest British Jamaica stories in stone. We're in Guanaboa Vale, St. Catherine, in what used to be the historic parish of St. John, one of the earliest parishes established by the British after they captured Jamaica in 1655. And even though St. John was later merged into St. Catherine in 1866, the church stayed as a landmark of the older Jamaica. A major historical source records St. John's Guanaboa Vale as dating from 1699, placing it among Jamaica's earliest Anglican church sites. So why build a church here? Because St. John was a working colonial parish. Plantations, estates surrounding this area, and the Anglican Church functioned as the official parish system for worship, records, and community order in British Jamaica. Now here's the honest truth. In the sources I could access quickly, there isn't a single named builder credited for the 1699 church. It's not presented like one man built it. What we do see is how these churches typically came into being. The parish system and local planter class funded and maintained parish institutions through parish rates and local power structures. In fact, records describe the parish's finances and the minister's support coming by law, which points directly to the formal parish system. What makes this site hit different is that St. John's story stretches even earlier than 1699. One historical account notes that the church existed in the late 1600s, but by 1682 it was described as decayed, and the minister was preaching in a schoolhouse, meaning the parish church was already struggling, repaired, rebuilt, and evolved over time. Later, another note says the older church was burnt down before a mid-1800s rebuild, which helps explain why what you see today is a layered, survived what it could kind of structure. And then there's the ground itself. Inside and around this church are 17th and 18th century burials, including an early tombstone for Richard Guy, 1681, plus other colonial era graves and memorials that tie to place names and families across the district. So this isn't just a church, it's an archive made of limestone, brick, and names. St. John's Anglican Church in Guanaboa Vale is one of those sites Jamaica can't afford to lose, because once the stones go, the story goes with it.
So One Love family, now I'm armed with my light. So let's go on a bit of discovery here to see what is on the inside here. So it says, the Anglican Church welcomes you, St. John's Old Parish Church, Guanaboa Vale, St. Catherine, the Diocese of Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. So this was apparently the old parish church for the Anglicans. Oh, this is the bathroom. This is the bathroom. And these, sometimes you don't know the kind of value that these items hold. You know, somebody needs, if anybody from the Heritage Trust or so on, you probably need to come and look at some of these things. I don't have the kind of expertise to tell you exactly how old some of these things are, but somebody with greater knowledge can come and take a look to see if there's any value left in here. You know, that is one of my complaints when it comes to us in Jamaica. I know that there are resource constraints, but our history has to be protected, you know, at all costs, no matter what. We have to find some way of protecting our history. And let us go further down here. I wonder how old some of these benches are, you know, who had made them, what kind of materials they're made of. So I guess this is for regular members to use, you know, when you're doing your different kind of presentations and so on. And this would have probably been where you would get like your holy water and so on. There's a huge crack, as you can see up there, you know, but whatever work that had started, hopefully can continue, because you can see that there is some serious work that has been done on the roof, and for that I have hope that this work will continue. We can see the other angle now through that window that I was seeing from the outside. Yeah, but the trees are taking over. And while we love nature and so on, you know, if this continues, it's going to destroy sections of the building. So we have to control that as soon as possible. Not sure exactly what this rope is supposed to do. It goes straight up to the roof. History. Right in front of us. All the information about our past that can guide us, you know, towards our future.
When we choose not to tell these stories fully, truthfully, we don't just lose buildings, we lose memory. And when memory disappears, it creates space for distortion, for convenient versions of history, for silence to replace truth. That silence is dangerous. Because if we don't understand where we came from, the struggles, the choices, the consequences, then we carry those same mistakes forward, unknowingly, into the future we're trying to protect. But there is hope, because some people are paying attention. Some work is being done, and if we keep telling these stories with honesty, courage, and care, then these ruins stop being reminders of loss and start becoming guides, not just for the past, but for Jamaica's future.